Er det riktig vei?
Ja, det var riktig vei. Jeg tror det var noen fra meg.
Tar det ikke?
I'm sorry for this.
Bare å...
Hello? Does it work? Yes? Maybe? I'm sorry for this. Technical problems. I work for public administration. I meet a lot of people who think that people working in public administration don't work a lot. They don't know how wrong they may be. So sorry for that. I just had to finish the presentation yesterday evening because among all the projects we also have an important project this year and next year. It's to enhance the level of knowledge from the local building authority in Norway so that they can check the product documentation of construction product, to have an effective market surveillance, and actually to give all the value to this product documentation and product information. Has the construction product, the documentation, has the manufacturer declared the right performances, and are these performances satisfactory for the building project? So it's a lot of work, and that's what we are doing now. And I was asked by Lars to speak a bit about the construction product regulation, how it works, and how it affects actually product information, and maybe in a digital world, the product data. We have a construction product regulation because construction works, they do not move. They are placed somewhere, they are built somewhere, and then is the responsibility of member states to set the requirements of construction works. But construction products, they do move. And the CPR, the Construction Product Regulation, it helps the construction products moving freely within Europe. That's the whole point of it. And how the Construction Products Regulation does that is by setting common rules for construction products. A common technical language, so that we can assess the performance in the same way, and then a common way of presenting this information. That's the two main points of the Construction Product Regulation. The CPR, in a nutshell, is about trade. It's not about the use of construction products. The construction products will be used in construction works, and member states set the requirements for construction works. It ensures reliable information about the performances of construction products. It regulates only CE-marked construction products. CE-marked construction products, it's construction products which are assessed based on a harmonized technical specification, harmonized standards, or European assessment document. But only those. We have 450 standards, maybe 3,000 ETAs, and we have a lot more of construction products which do not fall under the Construction Product Regulation. And these are regulated by what we call the mutual recognition. It means that if there's a construction product which is outside the scope of the CPR, it's manufactured in Poland based on the national standard, national Polish standard. It should be able to, anyway, freely move within Europe, except if member states have national requirements which are justified according to European law. And many, many European countries have these national requirements. We do also have in Norway. And the reason why we have that is that we would not understand why CE-marked construction product will be regulated in a way to ensure reliable information, and it would be nothing for the other products. It doesn't seem reasonable. The last thing I wanted to say to you, maybe you know that, maybe not, but I think it's important. The European Court of Justice said that these harmonized technical specification, harmonized standards, and European assessment documents, these harmonized technical specifications, these are exhaustive, which means that a member state cannot set other requirements, other performances that those covered by a standard. I'll give you an example. Wood stoves, what we call commonly wood stoves, which in the SEN world is called local space heaters fired by solid fuel. I know this problem of definition is also a BIM. It's also in the BIM sphere, but for wood stoves, you have a standard, 13240. This standard doesn't contain any test method for particulate matters, which comes from the combustion of wood stove. It's quite important for health, environment. So it means that because it's not in the standards, we are not allowed to have a requirement of emission of particulate matters. So it's quite a problematic. The only thing we can do as a regulatory authority is to raise formal objections against this standard. It's quite complicated. But I can say we have a requirement for particulate matters in Norway, and we've been, and we are in conflict with the EFTA surveillance authority about that. But that's the bottom line. Everything should be in the standards. And it's our role as member states to be sure to ensure that in the standardization process, all the requirements also we have in our building codes is reflected in the standard. So actually, the CPR, it's a bit more than trade. Because like I just said, the standards are exhaustive. It reduces our room of maneuver. We can't set other requirements. And another example is that if a standard says that you have to declare the performance of watertightness of a windows, it's expressed in classes. Member states can only choose the classes which are in the standards. So it's a bit more than trade. I think it's a bit more an indirect harmonization of national building codes. The construction products, they are not end-use products. It's not a toy. You go to the shop, you buy it, you give it to your kid, and then he can play with it. You will need to build it in the construction works. So to assess the performances of construction product, you do that against basic work requirements, which are listed there, and I guess many of you know this. Which is interesting is that when the CPR was adopted, you had one new basic work requirement, and it's sustainability, which means reuse, recyclability of construction works, construction products, durability of construction works, and to choose environmental friendly products. It's interesting because it's really BIM relevant sustainability. But this basic work requirements is not operative or not fully operative in the CPR. You would never find a mandate from the Commission to SEN with asking SEN to assess the performance of a construction product based on these basic work requirements. So when actually Lars asked me to explain why the CPR affects the product information, sometimes it affects it in a negative way if not all the things are fully operative within the CPR. I work for the Norwegian Building Authority. We are a market surveillance authority. We work a lot with product documentation. We check if the product documentation is there. And in the CPR world, you have two main documents, which is the Declaration of Performance and the CE marking. I guess a lot of you knows about that. The thing is that the information about in the Declaration of Performance, which is the performance of the construction product, the manufacturer will need to repeat it in the CE marking. because the CE marking is something that you affix on your construction product, and then it would move around borders, and then the contractors, everyone buying the construction products need the information. So you would need a CE marking, but there's no language requirement for that. So you will need a DOP in addition, which should be in the language where the construction product is sold, to get the information. It's quite, for manufacturers, it's really difficult to understand, and it's a lot of work. Because the performances which are there, you will repeat it there. But that's not all. If we speak about product information, you will also have reach information. You would also have instruction of use, and the CPR so said you also have to have safety instruction. So we need all this information to, in a way, follow the construction product. And as you say, there's a list of what we call the essential characteristics. The essential characteristics are the characteristics of the construction product which are assessed against the basic work requirements. That's what it is, an essential characteristic. You can have non-essential characteristics of a construction product, which may be BIM relevant. You may have that. But it can't be in the DOP or in the CE marking. The European Commission is clear about that. The DOP and the CE marking is only the essential characteristics. And you can't have any private markings either having the same essential characteristics in the private markings. But there are much more data which are BIM relevant. We can think, of course, about the reach information, which I talk about. You can think about EPD. You can think about about the eco-design legislation, which is also relevant for construction product. So the CPR does not have all the information. And what we work for, with several member states, it's to say to the European Commission, we have these basic work requirements. These are enough to cover all the other requirements. What is about eco-design could be dealt with basic requirements 3 and 7. We should have everything in one place. It would make life of manufacturer much more easier. But we still have a long way to go. In addition, we have the DOP. It's one DOP per product type. It's a lot of work. And if you have windows, you may have a different type of windows, but the essential characteristics are the same, just the performance will change according to the different types. So the manufacturer asks for having, in a way, multiple DOPs. So you have several product types, or several products belonging to one product type in one DOP, which is, I understand why the manufacturer does it, and we supported it as an authority, but there's a risk for inconsistent formatting of the information, and difficulties also for compiling this information. So that's the context of the CPR, and how, in a way, it is a bit static. And the market is really dynamic, and changing things. So we just hope that when the CPR is reviewed, we'll have it in a way that it allows to take consideration for what happens in the market. Because if we take this, when the CPR was adopted by the Commission, they thought actually in what is called the silo way of thinking. You have a manufacturer, he will deliver a product to a contractor or a design engineer, and then it will be built in the construction works. It works this way. But in a way, with BIM, it works the other way around. It's the engineer setting requirements to a product. He will need to get some of the information from the CPR, some, because not all the characteristics will be relevant for BIM. And then he will need to take a lot more of data. So we definitely need to have, in a way, a systematic approach about this data. Because if we do that, it would enhance the quality of work. And we as a market surveillance authority and authority, we just want that. We just want more construction works with the right quality, so that actually we have achieved our role and that the construction works are according to the requirements we have in our national building code. So that's a bit about the information, how the CPR is a bit limited in that regard. It's not only limited about the information, it's also limited about its communication. If you read the CPR, first, when it was adopted in 2011 and then entered in force in 2013, in 2013, the manufacturer had to send a declaration of performance with the construction product. So they always use this metaphor that you need a truck for the construction product, they would need a truck for the paperwork following the construction product. But in the CPR, there was an option for the manufacturer to publish all the DOPs on their website. They were really fairly enough, but the Commission had to adopt a delegated regulation, which they did. It's really good. So manufacturer can have the DOPs on the website, but it's often in PDF format, so it's not adapted to digitalization. And when it's uploaded, it should be there, unchanged for 10 years. And they need also to keep up to date this documentation. But then they would need to produce new one. So it's a lot of paperwork. But when the Commission adopted this delegated regulation to allow for the publication of DOPs on website, they also say that they suggested that the use of standardizing matching readable format to allow for interoperability. Of course, the European Commission is not stupid. They know what's happening around. So when they explain the reason why they took this delegated act to the European Parliament and the Council, they explained that. But it's not really there in praxis. Except things which are market-driven, and also by the development of ISO standards. But there's still a gap between the regulation, which we deal with, and the market, and what the market is dealing with. So Lars asked me also to speak a bit about how manufacturers cope with the CPR. It's interesting, we had a survey in August 2015 among engineers and contractors, Norwegian engineers and Norwegian contractors and Norwegian designers. And this is just an extract of our survey. We had a question, should all this construction product be CE marked? 25% answered correctly. Is declaration of performance and ytelsesserklæring, which is the name, Norwegian name for ytelsesserklæring, the same thing? Below 20% of the respondents answered correctly. Can other documents replace the DOP and the CE marking? Yeah, 50% answered correctly. And the same for how can the DOP be communicated to the users. That's the level of knowledge about the CPR. But the whole thing with the CPR, it's to give information and data to the contractors and the engineers. So it's a bit problematic if we have this kind of results when the manufacturer did all their work to get in compliance with the CPR. So that's why BIM, in a way, will actually enhance the value of this information, because you wouldn't get the information you need, you would have focus on that, and then you would have the manufacturer making the right things to ensure that all the product information is also BIM ready. But that the people who actually need this information will use it in their daily life, which I don't think it's the case today. They may ask for a DOP, but they may not read it. So, in Norway, I think it was, they cope with the product regulation, the construction product regulation pretty well. I have to say we are in authority, we are also quite flexible. We understand the challenges, but we'd have a difficult start. I mean, the construction product regulation was published in 2011. the time when also the UK has its strategy for the use of BIM. And then it came into force in 2013. The first official publication about the construction product regulation from the European Commission came in 2015, 2 years after it came into force. So it has been a lot of work also from national authorities to explain what the construction product regulation is to the manufacturer, and they had to adapt, and I think they did in Norway at least a really, really good work. But they don't see any reward for their efforts. First, they rightly complain about the duplication of information in the CE marking and the DOP. Great. They also checked how many downloads of DOPs they have from their website. It's ridiculously low. And in addition, it may be market surveillance authorities checking if the manufacturer has the DOP. In addition, they must deal with a lot of European legislation. Large said it. It's not only the construction product regulation, it's eco-design. It can be machinery directive. It can be LVD. I mean, it's difficult to understand, both from them and sometimes for us. So there's a need for simplification, and there's things happening outside the CPR. There's also the smart CE marking from Construction Product Europe. There's all the softwares being there, all the market-driven solution to help to enhance the value of the data. Because at the end of the day, that's what it means is that we don't need documentation to have documentation. We need documentation that is going to be used and understood by those who use the construction products in construction works. So there will be a report in May this month about the implementation of the construction product regulation. It will be published by the European Commission. We'll see what the findings are. Maybe there would be a new round of negotiation about the CPR. We'll see how it goes, but that's the situation, that's the challenges. And therefore, we understand why there's so many things happening outside the CPR. So that's what I wanted to say to you today. I did not want it to be too complicated with SEN, standards, mandate. I think it was important you understand the general lines of how it works. And pretty much that's what I have to say. If you have any question, I can answer it. Good, it means that it was crystal clear. And it's actually because I did not get too much in details. But the thing is, I mean, the message that you have the construction product regulation, it gives some information. It doesn't give all, but the format is not really appropriate yet. And the use of and then it reduces the value of the data. And that's all we are interested in. Thank you.
Mathieu, one question. The window example. If there is a specification for a specific U value, the contractor or subcontractor, where would he find it? The U value defined?
In the DOP?
Yeah. So he finds it in the DOP. So my question has been to the contractors, how do you check that the U value on the window actually is what you have described? How do you check it? What is the answer? We don't check. So this goes with a lot of things. So you write a specification, and then you ask the contractor, how do you actually check? We don't. So that means that to be able to check what kind of document is out there in the market for you to read, it's called the Declaration of Performance, Ytelseserklæring. So in the Norwegian SAK, it says that before you install the window, you have to read and check that the product actually matches the requirements. So this is written in the laws. How many does this?
We wish there would be more.
Yeah. But I'm saying that this is an issue. So with the BIM process, that's not any issue, because the installed data would automatically flow from the manufacturer to the construction site. You'll check it off. You can use IFC, of course, but you can check it off saying, yes, it fits. Then it's an automated process. Then you have the green data and so on. So, thank you very much.